Sure. What happened to Mike? Mike, are you here? I just let
I
him
can
in.
see him.
Huh?
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
there you
here.
are, Mike. You're down in the corner. There you are.
I'm up in the upper left.
Well, of course, on your screen you are.
So I'll call the meeting to order at 6:03. And we'll add people as they come in. Greg, you want to do a roll call?
Why, certainly. Jane,
Present.
Karen. She's
Present.
Alan,
Present.
Bill,
Yes.
Raina,
Present.
Deb,
Present.
Lynn,
Present.
and Mike,
Present.
all present. And
The benefit of that is we also get to test everyone's microphone. I was having a problem with that, so I guess everyone can hear each other, so that works. Your typical announcements, could you go through those quickly on the postings and the recording so that we
yes,
are
this
official?
meeting is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel, which can be found on our website, which is the STRPB website, which can be found on the agenda.
All right.
I hope so.
And the minutes are not quite done for the August 24th. They will be forthcoming in a few days. So we'll
Hopefully.
just sort of
By the weekend.
by the weekend. Okay, we'll check that off. And just so during June, July, August, we intentionally didn't really have any board meetings and let the subcommittees work, and they've been pretty busy. The idea was we wanted the consultants to be doing the lion's share. I saw that in the meetings that I participated in that the finance, transportation, and facilities, they were both feet in trying to work with Mark and Matt, moving that along. So thank you for all the work that happened in between. I'm hoping that we can focus now on the facilities piece, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The DESI, there was a letter that went out. We haven't heard anything. We're waiting to actually wrap up the July 30th grant with the final spreadsheet tool, we hope, before we kind of push the issue to have some kind of a meeting with the powers that be with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We really have some big outstanding questions that they're going to need to address if they are serious about looking at larger school districts. And I don't need to go over too much that some of the towns, it's not favorable for them. And basically the money that Gil Montague would have in a larger district gets eaten up by the money that Pioneer gets in substantial aid. So that doesn't help at all. So we really have to get a much better handle on the financial piece going forward. The enrollment, we spent quite a bit of time going over what questions we could and couldn't get answers to. I think that's basically going to be on hold until we actually see what the October 1st numbers are. And then we can kind of go from there. So that's going to be a wait and see at the moment. Activities that have been going on, we'll come back to this in a minute. We have got a grant out. Greg sent out an email that we wrote a grant for the new money, and we asked for an extension. And just to clarify, on the new money, we started looking at, expanding more depth and breadth into the regional agreement and health and a lot of other things. And then we backed totally off that. And we had some conversations with Joanne Blyer and some of the other members expressed. It is past time. Well, I shouldn't say past time. The pandemic really put a fly in the ointment on trying to involve stakeholders throughout the process. But we have reached the point that we have analyzed for a couple of years. We have a lot of data. We have several reports, and it's time to really focus now on finding out how people feel about this, answering questions, going out to all the stakeholders, the parents, the teachers, the community, and through surveys and through forums, and really get a larger sampling. The education subcommittee was able to do some sampling with smaller groups, but through no fault of their own, for sure, we were able to at least test the survey, test some of the questions, get some response. So we'll follow up with that. My understanding is that we can take the survey and tweak it some for the various stakeholders. So again, when we get a facilitator in place, we can go back and focus on that more. Mars has completed their work. Greg, that's in the on the website now, right? Their final document. Right.
I believe so. I think I remember doing it.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
been a whirlwind. I've been getting my classes off the ground for the first 2 weeks. So.
And then the financial part, we talked about the transportation. It looked like it might be adding a bus last time when we looked at this. And the enrollment we talked about, we didn't have a lot of confidence in what the numbers were, because they showed a continual decline, and there's no bounce back part with the pandemic, and who knows what's going to happen in the future. So we'll have to see how many people are actually sitting in the classroom.
Alan,
And
can I
then the
just,
spreadsheet, Mike, you want to, yeah, if I
well,
open it up to you. for that.
I just looked quickly on the website, and I don't see a Mars report. If I go to consultants report, I see what's been there all along.
Well, then maybe I didn't put it in there, Mike.
Okay, well, I
Yeah, no,
we'll
I
just
haven't had a
clarify
chance to
that.
look yet.
Not
So.
not trying to,
Yeah.
no,
No,
I'm
it's
not trying to
fine.
nail you, but I'm just trying to make sure that, it should be there on the consultants reports when it gets there, right?
All right, thanks, Mike. I actually went and picked up a hard copy because I write on it and highlight it and everything else. So, Mike, can you just sort of give us where are we now with the consultants with Matt, Matt and Mark? Are we getting, Michelle just came on at 6:10, Greg.
Sure. Where we're at is that they are continuing to work on the tool. I actually had a meeting with them on Tuesday. They said they had some questions for me and wanted to know if I had any feedback on the latest version, which I did, and I sent that to them a little ahead of time. And basically what we have is a tool that takes the two existing FY22 budgets and pulls all the information out of them, and puts it into essentially one big budget that then gets divided up into various categories. And what's left to do is, number one, to clarify the process of how that will get changed once we have an FY23 budget, like what the process is to update that, to pull information out of FY23 budgets for the two districts. And also how to take that one budget, which is essentially the sum of the two existing district budgets, and transform it into a budget for a combined district. And I believe the conclusion of the Abrahams group at this point is that they don't have enough information to do that. Because what they need is essentially a plan, a staffing plan for a new district, which they don't see as being in their expertise. And we don't have that. We got a couple of documents from Mars, one for a combined central office, one for a combined middle school, high school. But I tried taking those two documents and applying them to what we got from Mark and Matt, and was sort of partially able to do that and also partially unable to do that. Some things mapped pretty well. Other things, it was really unclear. What the things that Mars was talking about, the positions Mars was talking about didn't seem to exist in either of the two existing districts, or things like them seemed to be there, but the salaries were way different. So I wasn't quite sure what they were talking about. And also on the central office piece anyway, what they defined as central office seemed to be a little different from what is typically defined as central office. So I think what we really need is a kind of complete list of staffing for a new combined district. And I don't think that the Abrahams group thinks that that's something they can provide. So until we get that, we don't really know what the budget's going to look like for a combined district.
So Mike, I have
We
a,
also need projections going into the future. Sorry, Alan.
right.
Go ahead.
So I guess my understanding, and apparently it's a more of a misunderstanding. I thought that the tool was going to give us the flexibility that when we went out and we surveyed staff and we sort of put together a broader input feedback from folks on what they'd like to see for courses and what the staffing would look like, that the tool would allow us to either delete some of the staff, or if we weren't running those courses, or add new staff and in the content area, and we'd have to figure out, there'd be a place that we could put in the salary. So I thought the point of the tool was it was going to be flexible enough that we would be able to then make accommodations, make adjustments going forward, and not, have the consultants continually doing this for this, so I was
Okay,
wrong.
well, right, the tool will be able to do that. So if and when we get the answers to those questions, who we want, what we want, we can use the tool to put those into a budget. On the original RFQ, it said we want a tool that, well, I guess maybe we said can be used. So it can be used to do that. We don't now have enough information to do that.
Yeah, and I
And what
agree
we
with
got
that.
from Mars isn't
Yeah.
all that helpful for
Yeah.
trying to do that.
And Mars only was able to, really get a small sampling of ideas of what we may or may not do, or what might be possible. I anticipate that when we have a facilitator and we're going out there and we're really talking to the groups, that's when we'd be able to put the projected staffing in a new school district, and then see how that plays out. So I would be satisfied as long as, because it's not realistic for them to, we don't know what the staffing is, and we can't wait forever to do that. But we can, as long as we have that flexibility, and you're satisfied, we could do it.
Yeah, we do. Oh yeah. Well, yes.
Okay.
How easy
That's
it's going to be is another question, but it's certainly possible.
I see Jane's lips moving, but I don't hear her. Jane, were you trying to say something?
I just said mostly.
Okay.
Mostly we can do it.
Okay.
And I have not had, life just got in the way with me the last few weeks, and I haven't had time to really work with the tool the way I hope to. So my comments are really general.
Okay, fair enough. So we can and then come back to that. Public relations, just an update in terms
Let
of.
me add one thing.
Yeah.
Just to finish up. We are expecting another update of the tool, hopefully by the end of this week. So we'll see.
So does that mean, Mike, that then your subcommittee can play with it? So when you meet with Mark or whoever it was next Tuesday, you could give them their feedback on how it was working?
The committee's been able to play all along, and yes, they will be able to play with the new one.
Okay,
And we have, the committee's been encouraged to provide feedback directly to Matt. And I don't believe anybody has done so except me.
okay, thank you. Deb,
They
would-
certainly can.
okay. If someone on the education subcommittee, Raina or Deb, or, do you have any comments, just going back that for a minute? We had talked about where we were at the last meeting for the education subcommittee, that Mars has sent in their report. Anything to add as, I put this in as a placeholder in case there were some other things that you wanted to comment on. Karen, I see no. Raina, no. Deb, no. Okay. So we talked about, we'll set up a meeting. So we're focusing on hiring a facilitator. And once we lay the groundwork for that, we'll try to time it so that there's a nice article in the paper that sort of features what we're looking for and what we hope to accomplish from that. And what I'd like to do is open up the this part of the meeting to talk about what you would like to see in the scope of service for a facilitator. I guess the big picture thing is that the facilitator would be meeting with the various stakeholders, figuring out ways to do the survey with students and parents and public forums, get that feedback, put it together, assimilate it, put it together in some kind of presentation to again bring back to the public again, and sort of say, here's what we've heard now that we've been out there and we pull it all back together. I'd like a second bite at the apple or a loop back, rather than going out and talking to everybody and then putting it together and then putting it out there and then they're done. I really think it would have value to put it out and say, here's what we heard. What are your reactions to this? Did we get it right? Is this what, people meant? And really kind of clarify that document before it's finalized and then released as on its merits. I think we are in a crossroads or at a point that the information that we collect, or I should say the feedback that we get from the reports, obviously the facilitator will have to become familiar with all the reports and review meetings. I think we put in like 264 hours or something. We put in a lot of time for this facilitator to meet with folks. And I want to make sure that everybody is participating in what do you want the facilitator to actually accomplish. From that, we will write up a scope of service, get quotes, and then put an ad in the paper. And then people can put what they feel they would like in order to do what we're asking. So if you want a few minutes to just think a bit. Greg, can I put you on the spot for a minute, or in terms of, and I can kind of go around, what do you see the most valuable value that this facilitator could do working on our behalf?
Well, I think first we're going to need to do a plan over the next year and how we want the facilitation to go. Do we want to work it in terms of districts, towns, have a plan so that we know exactly where our facilitator needs to go and who they're speaking to. So are we going to plan on having open public forum meetings right off the get-go, or are we going to ask for particular stakeholders to come in first to meet in smaller groups? I think we're going to have to get the facilitator up to speed in terms of what we're doing. It's going to take probably a couple of meetings so that they can get the context of what we're doing. And then I could see public meetings possibly, bigger public meetings being postponed till we have smaller group meetings. Because my guess is we'll have more fruitful meetings with smaller groups first, and then go into larger group meetings where we may have addressed or at least gotten questions ahead of time in those smaller groups that we can answer in larger group settings. Does that make sense?
Greg, do you think it would make sense though? Because you're talking about a rollout plan,
Right.
which is something that the full committee could put together, or we could hear what the facilitators' thoughts are as we work together on how, once they become familiar with it, how they think, the person actually doing this thinks it might make the most sense.
Yeah,
To do
I think
that.
I think that's great. I think we could come up with our own plan, run it by whoever it is, and say, does this sound like a good plan? And if not, we're willing to be, flexible, because that person is the expert in terms of leading the meetings to their conclusion in terms of what we're trying to achieve.
So in a scope, Greg, I would put down something like work with a subcommittee or work with a planning board in developing a plan to seek feedback. So that would be basically one of the scopes, is they're going to be working with us to develop this plan.
Yeah, I think that's really important, is that
Okay.
we develop a plan so that we know what we're doing at the
Yeah.
time.
Can I go to Jane?
You can. I think what Greg said about small groups and large groups is important. I'm not sure what the definition of small is, but perhaps one way to address that is to go into each school and invite parents and residents of the area that school covers to participate in what we would call a small meeting. We always talk about sitting down with the select boards, and that's fine, but sometimes I'm not sure that the select boards always hear everything that people want them to hear. I mean, sometimes people don't want the select boards to hear it, so maybe they would say it. If it was a meeting in their elementary school or middle school or high school.
So Jane, let me follow up. How about if, what are your thoughts are if I like the idea of having it in their respective schools, but I'm not, and I'm open to this, but I'm wondering if it would make sense to have like a meeting one night for all the parents, and a meeting for another night with all the staff, and a meeting with another night, and so that, I don't know, if you have the teachers there and the parents there, I'm just wondering. And I see Deb has.
I think I think in my mind, I was thinking parents and residents. I was not thinking staff.
Okay.
I was seeing staff as a separate meeting, and then the larger meeting would bring these groups together.
Okay.
Because we don't want the parents to influence the teachers, and we don't want the teachers to influence the parents in these discussions.
Okay. Deb, you're
Now,
on.
I think respectfully, we should probably start with the staff before you go any other place, because it's their input that's going to be critical to how lots of things are developed. So however you do it, I think Jane's right, you need to have parents separately and so forth. But I think the first group that ought to be consulted would be the staff.
And I would just follow up that that's kind of our mission in terms of our plan. If you look at our agenda plan, was that we do want to hit on the staff and administration and teachers first, because most parents are not as knowledgeable of what's going on in the school as they are. So they're going to say, well, what do the teachers think? What do the administrators think?
Off of it.
Right. And so they're going to reach out to those people, or they're going to ask us what they think. And if we have meetings with the parents first, and we haven't gotten the teachers and administration up to speed as to where we are now, not where we were 6 months ago, then we don't really know what they think with the new information. So
That's a really good point, Deb. So that makes a lot of sense, and it's respectful. You know, it's their working conditions, working environment. Karen, may I go to you? You're muted.
Oh.
There you go.
You can. I'm not sure what I can add. I'm thinking ahead to the types of questions that might be asked. For instance, why is this being undertaken? And do you have any information about the positive aspects of this? And it seems like we don't have the economic piece quite yet. So where do we see this fitting in with that as far as the timeline goes? I mean, they are going to want to know, you know, what's in it for them and their kids.
I think that's a good point and a great point in terms of we should be doing some brainstorming about what questions, you know, might we expect. And you know, honesty is obviously the best policy in terms of, you know, in answering those. If we don't know, then we just say that. If they ask us a question as you know, regarding the finances, no, we don't have it. We don't have it tight with a bow, but we certainly do know that at the present state, it's not advantageous. So we tell them that, and we're going to work on the state to see if there's benefits. If there are benefits educationally that come out of this, then we answer those. Certainly, a couple of the reports showed that more possibilities are there, but we haven't gotten feedback from the parents, and that's what we're doing. Deb.
Alan, it would make sense to me to somehow work on this survey first, because I think if parents looked at this survey, or staff even looked at it, it might then generate questions that they have not understand the whole process. If they get a survey and they answer it the best they can, to let them know to remember their questions, so that when we do go to a forum, they have some context about how this all is going to get pulled together.
I like that. It sort of sets the contextual stage of thinking. That's a great suggestion. So that and maybe we also put out like a little summary of, you know, what's been going on and why we're at this age, and to give them a little more context to that, and then the survey, and then get those results. So I think that's good. I think it will prime people's thinking. Karen, did you have more comments?
Well, I was just going to piggyback on that. I know that the survey that the Ed subcommittee was working on could be tweaked for each group, and it does already contain a background, which is a good thing. So you could take a look at that and see if that's satisfactory, and then could the facilitator be used to tailor that to each group that might be surveyed?
Probably could be. While you were talking, I'm also wondering if there were parts of the PowerPoint presentation that would be helpful in the, you know, overview to parents when we're trying to get feedback. Probably take the best out of the several that were done over the last couple of years, and you know, share that. So you're talking about, Karen, taking the survey, tweaking it for each group, and sending that out prior to meeting with that group. Was that the final point? I think I missed something. Was it?
Yes,
Okay.
that was it.
Okay.
And maybe it won't need to be tweaked for each group. I know there are questions on it that help identify to which group the person answering belongs. And so it's possible for us then to figure out, you know, how to group them afterwards, if that's the only thing we have to be concerned about.
Okay. Thank you. David joined us at 6:32. Greg,
From the
Alan?
principal's office at Warwick School, I would add.
Ed, I'm gonna go to Bill. Jane?
The survey that we're discussing is the one the Ed Committee has put together.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, what are your thoughts?
I think it's difficult to say where we are actually right now. But I agree that there's PowerPoint out there and there's a survey that's been established. I don't agree that you should tweak anything. I think that you need to ask people the same question and find out what their answers are. In terms of staff or the general population, originally I was thinking the general population, but you all have made good points about including the staff and then trying to integrate what their input is into our process. This is where we're at. But ultimately, it is the communities, not the staff, that funds the school and has the final say on whether this goes forward or however you fund the situation. So I also take into account or consideration the point about what's in it for me type attitudes. And I do think that from some conversations or reports that have been out there, there are people that are first and foremost expecting some kind of savings from this monetarily. And dealing with that, dealing with the financial ones, issues, it's totally unclear what kind of structure we would intend to have. So I can fully understand that you can't come up with a budget projection because you don't know what programs you're going to run and you don't know what impedances are going to happen with the physical plant just being a physical plant. So it's you guys are all doing a nice job and it's great to sit here and listen to, and I think we will move forward. And that's what I think about it all.
Well, I'll come back to that because you made a couple of interesting points that are probably worth following up. Deb, you'd like to add more? You're good. Len?
I'm fine with what you're saying.
Okay. And so David, just so you know what we're doing, we're collecting thoughts to be able to put out a scope of service for what our expectations will be of a facilitator who will be reaching out to the various stakeholders in the communities and getting feedback and then sharing that. In that reach out process. Mike, I'm getting a message. My internet became unstable. Mike?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think I've heard a lot of good ideas. So I don't have a whole lot to add, but I do think that the idea that people are going to be asking what's in it for me is important, because I think people always ask that. And my sense is that people are going to be essentially asking, what do we get out of it and how much is it going to cost? And going back to our earlier conversation, it's true that we don't have clear ideas of, I mean, part of this process is figuring out what sorts of programs we might want to offer. Therefore, since we don't know that, we can't come up with costs. But it does occur to me that the previous report had two sample programs, program 1 and program 2, that we did get estimated costs on.
Yeah.
And this time around, it looks to me as if we're not going to get anything like that. which does strike me as being a weakness in what we're doing now, because it would be nice to be able to say, well, we can't give you an exact cost because it depends on what we're going to do, but if we made these assumptions, program one, essentially keep on doing what we're doing, it looks like it would cost about this much, and here's how it breaks down across the towns and assessments and so on. Or if we were going to add some enhancements at a certain level, program two, it would cost roughly this much, and here's what the differences would be. And I think it would have been helpful if we felt we were in a position to do that. And right now, personally, I don't see us being there unless something changes. So I think we'll be saying, well, I don't know, what it's going to cost. And you can have all kinds of things, but and it's.
Yeah, the cost is going to be somewhat problematic. However, having said that, when we're going out and we're soliciting feedback, the ideas of what parents would like to see in their schools, what would keep them from going out from school choice, what programs they feel that would help strengthen their child's education or prepare them more for the future. Hopefully those things will start to percolate up that can then be folded back into what might be possible, and we'd be able to plug those things in a tool and see how much that would cost. I just want to make note that Deb came on, I think it was 6:37, and thank you so much, Deb, for joining us. You've had a couple members pinch hit and help fill us in on the way. Deb?
Alan, I think the biggest, as I heard Mike and Karen talk, is we have to reframe the whole thing. It's not what's in it for me, it's what's in it for the students of our town.
Here, here.
That's the way it
Yes.
has to be consistently framed, that they take the me, because it shouldn't be what's best for me as a person, even as a taxpayer. It should be what's best for our students. And the whole thing has to be framed in that scenario. If it's framed any differently, you're right. People are just going to go, well, I don't know if I like it. You have to frame it in terms of the students.
We have to
I
come at
agree.
this. We have to come at
I
this in a
agree.
third way. We do not want to get in that argument. And I'm coming from, there's such thing as an unselfish act. Ultimately, what's in it for me? I don't like stupid people. I don't like being surrounded by stupidity. I want knowledge. I want people who reach their potential. That's a selfish desire I have. So Bill Clinton got elected by finding a third way. The main thing was to stop talking about the rights of this and the rights of that, and to instead frame things as good public policy or not. Then we could stop having the argument about whether this is a right or this is not a right. It's not, just recognize that it is good public policy to have well-educated citizenry.
Hey,
Let's go back to teaching civics.
okay. I agree with the intellectual thinking behind this. I want to keep focused on where right now we're focusing on in hiring a facilitator and developing a scope of service that we want this person to be doing. If you're on topic on that, let's continue, because I did see Greg and I did see Karen, and I was going to go next to Rena, and then I was going to go to David, and then Deb, and then I would have included everyone in that sharing your initial thoughts of what we want this person to be doing for us. So, Rena?
Alan, do you
Oh.
see me?
No, who's talking?
Michelle, I've been on since 6:07.
Oh, thank you.
You can't see-
I do now.
I
Thanks,
can see
Michelle.
all of you.
Okay, thank you. And Michelle,
right.
I think you popped in, and I think when I said my internet became unstable.
No, No, it was before that,
Oh,
because
well,
my hand has been raised.
oh, I
for
have
quite
not
some
seen
time.
you at all, so we'll
Oh,
we'll
okay.
come to you. So, Raina, and thank you, Michelle. Raina?
So I guess one of my questions is whether the facilitator would be the person to collate the data from the survey. Would that be
Yes.
part of their job? Okay. so it'd
They
be
would
collating it.
synthesize it, collate it, synthesize it, and then develop a presentation of their findings, and then loop
Mhm.
back and represent that in some public forums to get people's feedback from, this is what we heard, is, what are you thinking? What, how do you feel about this?
Mhm. And would
And at
they
what-
also be doing presentations to the public, like a public forum, to talk about what we're doing and the pros and cons of what of that, I mean, what our findings have been?
Yes, that would help be
Mhm.
part of the contextual background of,
Sure.
a summary of what we've been doing, and the facilitator would be sharing, here's what we found to
Mhm.
date. And
Sure.
they, Marjorie, cleaning up the findings there, and then asking people, do they think that, how do they feel about that? Do they
Right.
think they're accurate? Do they agree or disagree with them?
Mhm.
Other things, Raina?
Well, in terms of getting information from the staff, I think it is important to get the staff input. I think, the communities are going to make their final decision, but I feel like the input from the staff will help inform the community's perspective. I think they are going to want to know what the teachers and administrators think about, about things in one way or the other. So I think it is important, and I think it's a really good idea to speak to the staff, to give presentations to the staff separately,
Yeah.
and first.
Now, my thinking, and it could be off on this, but my thinking was that, out of respect and out of the fact that, they're the ones that are working miracles in the classroom every day, that we would start with them. But
Mhm.
my thinking was not that we were going to be saying, here's what the teachers thought. If I were
Yeah.
facilitating this and someone were to say, well, what do the teachers think? I would stop right there and say, well, I'm interested in what you think.
Yeah.
We can share at some other point when we pull this all together and synthesize it. You'll see a full report on what all the various stakeholders thought. But the
Right.
focus of this is, as parents, what do you think? And I would just redirect that. So I
Sure.
know, and that's the point, Bill, I wanted to come back, because it seemed that that we may have been going down the trail of, when people ask that questions, that we'd be sharing what teachers thought and they'd be reacting to that. I'm hoping that's not what we'd be doing with a facilitator,
Mhm.
if that makes sense to folks. I will go to David, Michelle. You're on mute.
I feel sorry for Michelle because she seems like she's waited longer
Okay.
than everybody else. Go to
Oh,
Michelle and then come to
sorry.
me.
Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my laptop. I can't get in, so I'm on my iPad. Well, having worked with several different facilitators in different settings, what's going to happen is they're going to interview key people from this planning committee and ask what our goals are. And then you would proceed from there. If we wanted them to interview teachers separate from parents, separate from, I don't know, the community, I think what you need to give the facilitator is some key points. We want this to be a positive experience. I like what Deb said about for the kids and not what's in it for me. I mean, I think we have to frame the way we want the facilitator to work with the different groups. And you're going to get out of it what you tell the facilitator to put into it. I'm trying to think some other words that I could use to make my point. I'm trying to think of examples. So when we worked with the Heart Committee and we did a presentation, we asked the facilitator, who we had never worked with before, to please try and keep it positive, to listen, take and value what people say, try to redirect them if there's a lot of negativity coming out of this. And ultimately what ended happening was we went further. And from the Heart Committee and from what Gil Montague was doing, we've now formed the 6-town regionalization planning committee. So we have to have a momentum to move forward, to not to come to an ultimate goal where we have a new school all set up with the right staff, but we have to have goals that come out of this, that we want the best education for the children. And yeah, hopefully save money, but maybe that's not gonna work. Because what we know is if we both stay on this course, it's only going to get more expensive and our administrative costs are going to get higher, and we are not going to be able to provide a lot of different courses for the kids.
Can I just
Is that clear?
Can I just interject? I just want
Yeah.
to frame it this way. If the towns don't save overall cost, that does not mean that we're not actually saving. If you think
Right.
about it, it's like the difference
I
between,
agree.
do you want a bottom line Kia with roll-up windows? Or if we combine, it's going to cost the same amount, or do you want a Mercedes with absolutely everything in it? Right? I mean, that's another way of framing it. You're going to get a lot more bang for the buck if you combine your districts, because of just the sheer numbers of students are going to improve the programs, right? So, and we know this. So I'm not, maybe that was a little extreme, but you are going to get a better programs because you're going to have more flexibility in scheduling, being able to field your teams better, have more robust arts. You're going to have all these things. So it may not, in the formula, produce savings in the way that, oh, we're going to see our taxes go down. Well, maybe not. Maybe they'll stay the same. Maybe you'll pay the same amount, but you're going to get way better education for your students.
So Michelle, going back to your point on the facilitator and the scope, and us being clear, I mean, isn't the goal of this for the facilitator is to bring the information out in an impartial way, to present, to collect, to share, and then eventually put a report together. So the simple goal is to gather feedback on how people think and feel about this.
But it's just not the facilitator going out there. We should be a part of that.
Correct.
Because we're going to have, the facilitator is going to facilitate between our group and the other groups and collect that data. Because that facilitator can't go out and talk to different groups. If he or she doesn't have all the information that we have.
Right. And
so we would need someone from the education committee, someone from the finance committee. If we're going to have, I'm just going to throw out 7 meetings, say, all of us on the planning committee do not have to attend those 7 meetings. We can pick, 3 of us could go, or, we can break it up, that we can answer the questions and help the facilitator. Because the facilitator, someone's going to ask a question and she's going to look at us and say, do you have that answer? And we're going to have to provide that answer.
Mhm.
So when you're writing up the scope, it's not going to be the facilitator doing all of this by themselves.
Working with the planning board members.
Yes, it
Yeah.
has to be.
Right, right. So that'll be one of the first bullets that comes out. Deb?
So I know that at my committee, we talked about this. Remember, I can't remember which one of you folks landed on the idea of working with a finance committee to, someone had that great idea. Maybe it was you, Karen, or
Yeah.
maybe it was Michelle. I can't
Yeah.
remember. Said we need to partner up with someone from finance and go with a facilitator to every presentation and take turns, right? So that, because we are obviously enmeshed in the community, can speak about the community clearly, can sort of allay and explain. I know none of us wants to do the work or can possibly do the work of the facilitator, but we need to actually partner with this person. I also think, and I might have missed that, but the facilitator is also maybe going to be working with the sort of the task force, or the maybe task force, not the right word, the groups of teachers who are going to represent both schools. I don't know if we got to that, but this person is going to have to be able to do a lot of things well. I don't know who this person would be, but they need to be, they need to be willing and able to really bring people together in a way that the sessions are well planned out with specific goals. I do think having goals for the facilitator, sort of reflecting our values, would be really important, and what that might look like. Our desire for sustainability, for social justice, for equity, maybe some more rigor, desire to have more robust programs that will be able to continue over time. And just to speak to a little bit about trying to save money, as our populations continue to shrink, more and more people, at least on the Pioneer side, are leaving to go to other schools. There are fewer and fewer students, and that means there are more room at other schools. I mean, I can speak from I think Raina can too, on a personal note. The charter school has more room. They're able to take people off the wait list now. It used to become very hard to get into Four Rivers. So it was this lottery and people wanted to get there and get in there. Now they're calling and saying, hey, we have room, because there are fewer students. Does that make sense? So that is $20,000+ leaving our district every time someone goes. And I get why someone would go, because of what's happening, in Pioneer, at least, just again, fewer students, less stability, trouble fielding teams. All of that is just going on and on and on. And so when people talk about that, I mean, we as a group can really speak to that when people push back about saving money. Anyhow.
So you're talking, Deb, about how we might participate or help assist the facilitator with maybe some of the comments, but
when we have public forums, I think there
Yeah.
has to be
Yeah.
two of us,
Yeah.
along with a facilitator, in any public forums. And public forums should try to be in person. We should have them through Zoom. We should have them in community centers. We should make ourselves available as much as possible. There has to be at least one of us in every public forum, if not two, and ideally one from the subcommittee, the ed subcommittee, and one from finance. I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about finance or transportation. And I should have mentioned transportation too, of course. I'm sorry about that. It could be, at least two of us from one of those subcommittees.
all right. And any final thoughts on what would be in the scope of service for the facilitator?
Going to be arranging the times for all these meetings, I assume, right? They're going to be doing
Right.
all
Yeah.
of that, posting. I don't expect Greg to be doing that. I assume the facilitator will take care of that.
Mhm.
Posting these meetings, these public hearings, these forums. So that's, paperwork. Obviously having agenda for the meetings, organizing us, saying these are the dates, who can show up for them. We have to be able to commit to those. I imagine them, maybe getting the two different districts volunteers who might want to represent the teachers union, the staff, the administration, these sort of smaller, I call them task force, but that's maybe the wrong word, sort of like hearing groups. So that they're not gonna be able to get everyone in a room, I don't think, maybe not during COVID time, but maybe having smaller groups from both districts that are the representatives of the larger schools and organizing that, and then maybe having one or two where everyone can be included. I don't know. That person will have to figure it out, but I would think that you'd want it to be manageable. And then, of course, putting out the survey, which is a good, I think, sturdy vehicle to get information, collecting all of that data. I mean, I don't know how much we're paying this person, but it's going to be, I would imagine it's like a 6-month exploration of how people feel, and then collating all that information. I don't think I missed anything. So sort of working with teacher and district groups, maybe working with select boards, maybe having a meeting, a forum for them so that everybody is on the same page about what we're doing, and then having community meetings, and then putting the survey out, collecting the survey data and collating that so that we know how people feel in general. And maybe they have to figure out what steps they want to do it in. And maybe we give them some direction of how to do that.
That's great. That's really great. I took a lot of notes on that because those are the specifics in terms of the logistics and the organizing and the framing. I mean, all those specific tasks need to be in a scope of service so they know what the expectation is. So I appreciate that. Karen. Oh, and then David. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Karen, and then.
Okay, I just don't want to leave out the school committees when we're talking about at some point when the facilitator is beginning to go out and talk with people along with members of our subcommittees. The school committees should receive a presentation of what's to come and the goals of it and where we are, so they're not left out of the loop. And I'd also like to clarify an earlier comment. When I said people will wonder what's in it for me, I also said, and the kids. I did not just say what's in it for me. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. David, you're on. You're muted.
I already seized time, so I'll be brief. I won't spend any time countering folks' dislike for charter schools, competition, et cetera. You've heard it before. I do think we need to find a way to compete and not become anti-competitive. I think the major question here is, are we looking for a coach or are we looking for a workhorse to carry our load? And I come down on the coach. We want somebody to coordinate, to summarize, to organize, and to help us use good use of our time. We can't farm this off to somebody else. We can't look away. My impression so far is that the regional school model really sucks when it comes to transportation. It means longer bus rides, higher busing costs. I think
Is
that's
that
not
about the facilitator, David?
Well, the facilitator needs to look at that. So I'm saying put that issue on the scope. I also sent out the Berkshire something or other scope of service for their second facilitator. You can take a look at it. It's in the model of farm it out. I don't agree with it.
Yep.
No, I agree with you, David, and thanks for sending that. Actually, we hit on a lot of the points that are in that scope of services, so I think we're doing well.
All right, can you people hear me or see me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Because, all right, I need help. I cannot see anyone anymore. For some reason, I'm back to the original email. I don't know where everybody went.
The screen's probably behind one of your screens. You probably just clicked out of it. You're in a different tab or something, or
No, what's happening is, wait a minute, let me try this. I seem to have dangerous web page blocked. This is a known dangerous web page. It's highly recommended that you do not visit this page. I'm not trying to visit any page. And then it tells me to continue to the site. So
No, don't do that.
let me just keep
Alan's
closing.
going in-
windows.
Alan's going into the
Tab
dark
will
web.
get you to the screen you want. Just hold down the Alt key, tab,
What?
tab.
The Alt key.
Now hold that down, then touch tab once. That'll switch screens. Just keep doing it till you hit the one you want.
Oh, cool. Wait a minute. There, you're back. Alt,
Good coaching.
Yeah.
Alt, plus tab.
to the coaching point.
300 residents with computers on the town internet. I've got experience in this.
You're
So,
genius, David.
so David, to your point, I guess, I think of coaching a little differently than you framed it, but yes, we want someone to do all the things that you, and that Deb talked about. That's I don't know if I'd call that coaching, but a facilitator is really someone who, in my mind, is going to go out, share information, glean it, solicit it in a very positive way, put it together so it's understandable, and that we're a part of that. And that, the first bullet will be about working with the planning board. I had originally thought, and I'll just throw this out there, that that we might want to, because we'll be doing working with this person, that we might want to have members of the education subcommittee working with, going out to the groups that would have a primary interest in the educational piece, the parents, the staff, and so forth, and with someone there that could address finance if it drifted off that. And then we'd have the finance subcommittee working with people that sort of have a love for the numbers and what that might mean. And members of the finance subcommittee, you're well respected in towns, would help to coordinate, introduce the facilitator, be a part of that meeting, and to, bring select boards, finance committees together and be able to answer many of the questions, at least to some degree, where I can't see. I guess I think finance committee members want to know more about that aspect of it. And they certainly could go to some of the other forums because they're probably parents or grandparents and things like that. But I just curious your reaction about sort of, not the tale of two cities, but there's the educational piece, the finance piece. Do we want to have more involvement with the education subcommittee, working with the facilitator in meeting with the groups of finance people? Thoughts?
I think Michelle's hand is up, but her screen went off.
Okay, Michelle and then Raina. The only one I saw was Raina, and I don't know where Michelle went. I see iPad. Is she on an iPad? Go ahead, Michelle.
So her hands
Are you
up.
on mute? Greg, help. I don't know. Oh, there she is.
She's back.
I don't know what's going on. I'm having problems tonight too. Did you ask a question?
Yeah, I'll let Raina answer it, and then you can glean from her answer. We'll have you guess the question. Raina,
Okay.
the forum that the consultants did to sort of test, as a test run for the education subcommittee, there were questions that came up for both finances and education piece. So I feel like there's going to be overlap in the topics. And so I think it's not as useful to have one that focuses on, to have different ones that have a different focus. I think one size fits all, I feel like, is gonna get you the best information. So it's also gonna share the most information, I think, with the community.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep, that's what I said initially. We have to team up and go to these meetings.
So the question was, should the subcommittees, the respective subcommittees, like the finance, be more involved with the boards of selectmen, the finance and so forth? So I think Raina, you're right on point. There was a
Yeah.
thought before we had the meeting. I wanted to frame it and see what people's thoughts are. So that makes sense. There probably will be a tremendous overlap. All right. So
I have one point I want to add.
oh, there you are.
I think that we need to strongly consider how we get attendance at these meetings. We have to frame this so that people want to be there, not what we want to do with it, but we have to frame it so they want to be there, and then we can have discussions. If we try to frame it how we think the world should be, nobody's going to come.
Okay. I'm gonna wrap this up unless someone has any other comments about what will be in the scope of service. Be looking for it in your local newspaper. I'll get,
Okay.
Greg and I'll get it together. We'll send it off to Joanne. She's been, by the way, really great at giving feedback into the grant applications. Gil Montague is really fortunate to have her. Very knowledgeable, very efficient, and is a really good thinker. Through her efforts, we were able to get this out. And just so you know why you weren't included, I found out on a Saturday. I think Greg found out on a Friday of the long weekend that the new grant was due that Friday. So we basically had 4 days to pull together information and look at the application and what they wanted, and then get it out on September 10th. So Monday being a holiday, we couldn't really talk to too many folks. So we were really under the gun for that. And then the extension was the following Friday, the 17th. And then so they had some different hoops to ask for the unspent money. There's $9,000, approximately $9,000 that was left over. And so we reframed we didn't use the word facilitator, but it had been reframed to continue the work of getting feedback and meeting with groups. And so we're going to advertise under the extension to get the things going with a facilitator and so forth. And then that should roll right in very nicely to the new grant. So we're not wasting a month or whatever, month and a half before the new grant comes in. So that seemed to make sense, to utilize our time the best.
Hey, Alan, there's a couple of hands up there. Got Michelle and David.
Oh,
I can't see any. Oh,
No,
David. Okay,
sorry,
David.
I didn't put mine down.
David.
So I'm concerned that by us actively reaching out to, handpicking and having the facilitator reach out to folks, that we will fail to measure the saliency of this matter with folks, that we really won't get a sense of the depth. And another way to come at this might be for us to create some publicity and ask for folks who want to serve on a short-term public advisory committee or something, so we get self-selected people who have some strong feelings involved and bring them into the process at this point. So I want to put that out there. It's at odds with what we have planned here, but I'm concerned that we're have the concerns about getting recognized for this project.
Okay, I guess my response would be that, you know, that's one of the things we're tasked with as a planning board. I think that people aren't going to be shy, that we are going to have people that will come out and feel very strongly one way or the other. And the only thing that I think will be helpful is to just make sure we give them all the information that we have and, you know, try to answer their questions, not necessarily to change their mind. If that happens, that's great, but to make sure that they're comfortable with the way they feel. For example, if someone has misinformation or through the rumor mill or whatever, and they come out and they're really upset and they express that, that's fine, because we want to hear what they have to say. Will they feel that way at the end of several public forums and receiving information and having a chance to think about it? They could go, you know what, I guess I was quick out of the gate. I think if I just polled parents right now, you know, without any of this and said, how do you feel about it? I think I'd be like, whose idea was that? Or why would we be doing that? Or what's the benefit to that? Or, I mean, I don't think people have enough information to be able to even know how they feel, other than emotionally. I think right now, emotionally, they might have some reasons to express their feelings, but from an intellectual or an understanding of information point, I think that could have them think differently. So I think people are going to come out. I don't
Hey,
think
Alan, I think to David's point, and I think it's a really good one, is I think he's got a very good point about how do we get in touch with some key people. I'm thinking like PTO, members that are already passionate about the connection between community and school. I think that was the first thing that came to mind. School committees. I mean, members on the school committee. We have members here, but how do we engage the school committees to be positive and spread the news? So that, I mean, these are key people. I think he's got a point that we need key people that can spread the news quickly. Otherwise, we won't necessarily get the news out in the way we want to, especially during, again, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So anyway, I think it's a good point.
All right, I'm going to go to Karen. I did not understand David's point to be that. I thought his point was to have people that feel very strongly about this to be on an advisory committee to help process and filter information. So both points are pretty good.
So I was suggesting we use that mechanism, but the one thing that argues against it is probably if we had an advisory committee, it would be a government body and would have to follow open meeting law, and we would just not catch some of the people I want to catch, I want to talk to. But let's really swing the door open. There's no doubt some folks who are lurking, who did not raise their hand to be on this committee, who are very much opposed to this. Those are the people we want to talk to.
Absolutely. Karen?
Yeah, I think we need to utilize every mode of print communication that we already have. I don't know how many towns have some form of newsletter, but we need to utilize those to get in touch with people. We need school newsletters that go home to parents. We need reports from the town that go to the citizens. We need to use every mode of communication that already exists within our 6 towns to get in touch with people and cast a wide net. And Jane, if you have any ideas about how to sweeten that, please let us know. We can't have a lottery for $1 million to get people to respond, but I think people will be interested in the topic if we approach it correctly.
And get to join in with that. I think that the facilitator is going to want to be able to be very, social media savvy, because it needs to be on Facebook. I know when we did those forums, I had, I don't know if she's still the chair of the PTO in Northfield, and she was like, why isn't this on Facebook, Deb? Why isn't everyone included? What are you doing? And I was like, well, this is supposed to be very small. We just got names. It's sort of a private invitation. This is not going to be supposed to be for everybody. We're just debuting the slideshow. And she got it, but she was very hot, kind of upset. She's a dear person, a nice person who knows me. And she was like a little bit upset that it wasn't promoted in a large open format way. I just told her we weren't there yet, but we would be in the future. So.
Yeah. And obviously the pandemic had a lot to do with that.
No, this was for our recent ones in the springtime,
Oh,
in terms of
the focus groups.
the 2 nights that we had.
Yeah, got it. If anybody has names of people that you feel I could reach out to when I put this out there, please send along names, phone numbers or whatever, so that I can alert them to the ad and try to solicit as many people that might have an interest in responding to this. That would be helpful, and we'll do a news article that will also alert people to what's going on. Mike, and so email me that within the next, let's say the next week. So keep your eyes and ears open to anyone that you think might have an interest in being a facilitator. Mike, your hand was up?
Yeah, I just had a thought. It occurs to me, it'd be nice if this process, it occurs to me that there is actually more than one question that we might want to answer during this process. One of which is, do the existing districts have problems going the way they're going? I think we all agree the answer is yes. But the second question then is, would combining them solve that problem? And the third question is, if the answer to the second question is yes, is it the best solution? And to me, those people, when they come to these forums, may talk to different ones of those questions. And I just think it's important maybe to keep those questions separate to try to understand which question is being answered by whoever's speaking.
Okay.
Because our part of our goal, I mean, for example, I think it might be easy to say, yeah, we have problems, therefore regionalization is a good idea. Well, to me, that's not an automatic therefore. The fact that we have questions doesn't say that regionalization is the answer. Something else has to point to regionalization being the answer. And regionalization might be a good thing even if we don't have problems, although I think we all agree that we do. There may be other solutions, and we have talked about that as being kind of outside the scope of this committee. But if people start talking about that, I think we should be prepared to listen, because we don't want to go ahead gung-ho on a solution just because it's the only thing we've been tasked to do when there might be a better idea out there.
All right, I think one of the things and I hear your point, one of the things we need to, I guess, kind of come back to is, we were formed as a planning board to do the research on this specific task and then come to a recommendation. So there may be other solutions, particularly if the conclusion is this is perhaps not the best one, or maybe not one that should be continued to be pursued. So we were charged with one major task.
Right,
So-
but that's why I say we need to be open to listen.
Yes,
in terms of coming up with an answer as to what to focus, even though we are focused on that.
Yeah. And that's true, Mike. Through this process, we may come up with, or we may hear a couple of other ideas or possible ways to approach this that we hadn't thought of. And we might be going back to the towns with a different recommendation in terms of maybe this is not, maybe there should be pursuing a different approach. So that said, we had a couple of things left on the agenda. Thank you, by the way. This is great feedback. I've filled up 4 pages for the notes. I'll have to reduce that down to manageable bullets to put out there, and then some kind of maybe a text that someone could then review to get the big picture if they're interested in pursuing this from their appetite is whetted from the scope and say, I have an interest. We'll probably have to have a follow-up document that gives them more information. So we should review the goals. We had the reviewing the goals, the parking lot items, if someone had other stuff. I want to just jump. Can we agree that October 19th, that Tuesday at 6 o'clock? Can we make that work for now? And not hearing people say no, I'll put that down as tentative. We also have 2 people that would like to step down. They would like to take a little bit of a break from this. Mike and Deb, your leadership with your subcommittees has been invaluable and very, very much appreciated. I know that you would like to, take a break, not off the committee, but as the chair, if I understand this, or am I not understanding this? Is that correct? You'd be still as a member, okay, but not chairing it. And Deb expressed the same thing, which I was glad to hear that she's willing to continue moving forward. She has a passion for pursuing this, but there are just so many time restraints. She would like to be involved, but not chairing the meetings and doing the agendas and so forth. So can I ask if there's anyone on the facilities subcommittee that might have an interest in maybe co-chairing that one, as well as, well, let's stay with that one for a minute. And do we have new member? We have some open seats too we need to fill, correct? Right? Bill, there's a new person on the school committee, right? In Gil Montague?
Yep.
Cassie, I think, has joined, hasn't she?
And has anyone
Yes.
approached her? Bill, can you twist around, see if she has any interest in?
Alan, she's a member.
She's on here.
She's on a member, yeah.
She's on our subcommittee.
I'm wondering, I'm wondering if, and this may be my mistake, but I'm wondering, I'll have to go back and check my planning board group email and make sure that she was included on this. I'm not.
I think she was, Greg.
She was? Okay, good.
I had the same
Right.
thought, and I checked, and I. believe
Good,
she
all right,
was.
great. All right, I just wanted to make sure that she was aware of the meeting.
Cassie's, is Cassie already on the finance committee?
Mm-hmm.
She is.
Yes, she is.
Oh, now that you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that now.
I think she joined my committee. She should have stayed on, she should have gone on mine.
Mike,
She might be on both.
might you
Yeah,
reach out
both.
to her and ask her if she's willing to take that on? I think at this point, it'd be good to have co-chairs on each of the subcommittees.
We could vote, we can vote, as they say, if you're not there, you become chair. So, I'm just kidding. That was a joke, everyone.
All right.
Well, how about, I had indicated to Deb that I'm willing to, because it's to co-chair on the education subcommittee. Because I think I would be going to all those meetings anyways and, participating. So I'd be, willing to do that. If there's someone else that would be willing to serve as the co-chair person.
I meant to ask Deb, but she's headed off, so I'm sorry. She's also gone. Everyone has said no on my committee, except for Deb.
Okay, what, can you reach out to her then at some point and get back and see where we are? And how
Did-
about
Did
Mike?
Steve say no? Deb?
You're muted.
I know we asked. I know he was on at our last meeting.
Right,
and
and he didn't say no, but he didn't say yes.
I'll email both of them at the same time and see what they say. That's fine.
Maybe you
Okay.
got two
Greg's
coaches.
point, we could just do it.
Right, right. Everyone else has actively said no. I know Bill and Karen, and I think Dana should not be doing it. So I think that's, yeah, I'll go after them.
Ultimately, if no one else will do it, I'll be happy to fill in. It's just a lot of other things that complicate my life, but
Hmm.
this one is a perfectly good reason to exist, so.
Well, that was positive.
All right, I'll get back to you, Bill, if these two say no, okay?
All right,
Yeah, we have a good group, Bill. You know, they're kind, they're forgiving, they've been very kind to me.
What about finance? What other new members do we have?
Just Cassie.
Michelle, what'd you say? I missed it.
Just
I'm
Just
sorry, you
Cassie.
talk-
I said just Cassie.
Well, why don't we, Mike, you want to call her?
I can reach out. When she joined, she did note that she has a number of other things going on and she would be happy to attend when she could. And she's not here tonight,
Okay,
so I can ask.
all right, we'll move forward. So we have October 19th at 6 o'clock. And let's continue and just finish up the agenda. It is almost an hour and a half in. I'd like to, as you know, I'd like to not go too much longer than that. So great, review our goals.
Yeah, I think, we're still in the same place. I think we kind of reviewed them with the scope of services. We need to finish up the finance tool. That will put us in a better position to move forward with having answers on the finance side that we can frame in the meetings that will be coming up over the next year. I
Okay,
think we also talked about how we want to proceed in those meetings, which are the next steps. So, we've gathered information from the stakeholders, and I think it's good to go in the order that we discussed, starting with staff and teachers and administration, so that we sort of get an idea from them, their first impressions, so that if we are asked from the community at large what we've heard from them, it may not necessarily speak for them, but what we've heard from them, it's good to get their input first. So I think we're doing the right thing. The only thing I would bring up that's not on the agenda that we didn't really mention, Alan, was we did meet with the FERCog, and the state has formed a new rural school committee that is looking at the formula, also looking at regionalization. And so I reached out to Linda Dunleavy and said, you should probably talk with us, since we have been in this for a few years now. And so we set up a meeting with them. There were some people from the state. There were some people from the Berkshire district. They're the other two districts that are also regionalizing or at least looking into the feasibility. And had a good discussion. We brought up a lot of the things that complicate this, which I think will be good for moving forward into our meetings. Why, when, as Mike brought up, other solutions bring on other challenges. So, there's been the suggestion of going much bigger. Let's do all Franklin County. Well, under the state law, we have to follow their guidelines, and we would have to, have 19 towns with 3 members from each town on a planning board. And you can imagine trying to set up a meeting with all, whatever it is, 57 members. So there's some serious challenges in terms of being able to necessarily regionalize in a bigger way. We also brought up the fact that regionalization doesn't necessarily bring savings through the Chapter 70, as we found that we can lose Student Opportunity Act falling back into hold harmless. And they agreed that the state should find a way to give an incentive that if you're going to do all this work and that you have towns that are interested in regionalization, then it really shouldn't cost them more. There should be some sort of financial incentive, and that losing Student Opportunity Act is definitely not one of them. So, would it be possible to keep that, keep that aid coming in, even though you're regionalizing, and that in the larger region might, pull us back into hold harmless. So those things were discussed. So there are going to be noticed at the state level. I guess that's it. I
Who's
wanted to
there
mention
from the
that.
state?
What's that?
Who was there from the state?
There was
from
one
DESE
guy
legislators?
specifically, and I'd have to go back and take a look at the names again. I can't remember his name. Do you remember, Alan? The guy was from the state. He didn't really say much until the end, and then he was kind of disappointing. He was kind of negative, like, well, let's just assume that they can't, the state's not going to really do anything with Chapter 70. I'm like, well, why not? I mean, we did in 2007, we made some pretty significant changes.
Yeah, I think one of the things that came out of that, his comment was, well, this is very depressing. And that, and it's because, in that conversation, we threw out some of the things that they have to consider when they were looking at, having a larger district, like the culture of the different schools and how those come together. It means a lot, the sports programs that people have, and if they're losing their mascot or having a blend or whatever, that people have a lot of pride in their school, and they went there, the kids have gone there. So the transportation issue. So in the conversation, we tried to be as upfront as possible in terms of, here are some things that, that have percolated up, that have come on our radar, that people have concerns over. And there was a lot of shaking of their heads, like, whoa, yeah, it's a lot of challenges that need to be faced, and they are the reality of how people think and feel. They're not overwhelming or they're not something that can be overcome, but certainly something that people have to be aware of so that they can think about how to address them. So I'm glad you brought that up, Greg. I kind of forgot that. I think they learned more than we did because they were looking to us.
And I'd just say that the name of the commission, it's a Rural Schools Commission Subcommittee, Regionalization and Shared Services. So that is a subcommittee of the larger committee, which is looking at all aspects of rural education.
Okay. Were there any parking lot items that people thought about as we were going through this, that you feel that?
I guess I just would want as much publicity as possible about the work we're doing, because the more people see and hear us working, even if it doesn't seem like news to us, the better off we're going to be. I mean, just having 1 or 2 articles we've had so far, some people are assuming it's definitely happening. Most people, I would say, no, don't understand at all what we're doing. The idea that most people are gonna be like, what? Or I think, Alan, you're absolutely right. I do think we have to get the word out that we're actively working on this so that it doesn't come out of the blue. And again, obviously in the Recorder, but also in what's the Montague? There's a Montague newspaper too. It has to be in that too.
Yeah.
Not just in the Recorder. So I really think we have to have a lifeline to the reporters so that we can just keep saying, and maybe even invite them into a meeting so they can hear a little bit. I just think it has to be promoted the way a school committee meeting gets promoted, so that people really have a pulse on what's happening.
Hey, Deb, what do you,
In the
what do you-
facilitator, all of that. I just don't think we need to keep it as much in the public eye as possible.
Deb, I mean, I've been thinking about social media. I mean, it's such a double-edged sword because you put up a Facebook page, which I could do. I can easily put up a Facebook page for what we're doing. But as you know, it can get really toxic really fast. I mean, you can set your filters, you can set, who can comment, you can turn comments off, all that kind of good stuff. But as you know, I mean, social media it strips so much context out of an issue that it can get ugly really fast. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not opposed. Yeah, I'm not
really
opposed to
recommending
it.
social media. I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not really recommending it unless we have like a public forum, and then people, that it's a good way to share information. But I guess I just want newspaper articles, letters to the editor, one of us could write one. I just think anytime there's like a little blip of information about us, the better. Again, going back to the select board members of our towns, anytime one of us can go and just say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're focusing on, so that they hear, maybe it gets in the newspaper. I guess I just want that piece, us to be upfront in printed literature. I would avoid social media, I guess, at this point, because I don't think it will be helpful unless we're sharing information, just information.
On
That's just, I don't mean to go on and on. That's just a parking lot thought
Yeah,
that I always have in my head.
no, that's a good one. I wrote it down. That's a real good one. I want to go to Bill in a minute. He hasn't raised his hand, but I have a question for him. Mike?
Yeah, just, I think that's a good idea as far as the newspapers go. One quick thought I have about social media is, as Greg said, it is a two-edged sword. It also requires attention, in my opinion. The last thing you want to do is to put up a Facebook page and then have nobody be attending to it. We don't want someone coming to something like that, asking a question and having it ignored. So it's more than just putting up a page. Someone's got to say, yes, I will pay attention to this.
Yeah.
And unless we're willing to do that, then and it sounds like we're not ready to do that anyway, which is fine. But if we decide we do want to do something like that, I just think that's important.
Okay, we're going to try to wrap things up. Jane, you had
I just wondered if we are asking the town clerks to post our meetings on their calendars, because I'm not seeing it on either Northfield or Bernardston's calendar. And that's one point of publicity.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it will be important to do that, Jane. I think especially for meetings, I think you're right. I think we will need to go back to not just posting it on our website, but also sending it to the towns.
Right.
Yeah.
My other comment is I had a resident of Bernardston tell me that he had gone out to our site and had seen the budget that we produced that showed how much more it was going to cost. And I said, but we haven't produced a budget. And I didn't follow up and go out and see what he might have been looking at, but there's something out there that led him to believe that we had already created a budget. I think we need to be careful what we put on the site for everybody to look at.
The previous report has sample budgets.
I don't know if that, he said that's not what he was looking at. But he couldn't
Okay.
tell me the name of what it was. He said, no, it's what you're working on now. So I'm repeating what was said to me that I haven't verified.
All right. So at the last Pioneer meeting, we did have an opportunity to just give the Pioneer Committee an update, and a very short one, to just let them know that we were looking for a facilitator. We moved into phase to start going out and sharing information, soliciting it, and putting it together. Pretty much what we talked about but it was a very brief overview, just to give them a heads up. I was curious, Bill, are there report outs at the Gil Montague School Committee, updates of what's going on?
Not from other people, through me and to some degree, the superintendent. But I'll have to make a point of talking to the chair and having something on the agenda so it can be taught, and I'll do that this week.
Okay, thank you. And I'll try to do the same on our end so that we can keep the committee informed, even if it's a very brief report on what's happening to date. Because we do get the press that does go to those meetings, so they may then follow it up from there. So, all right, thank you for doing that.
Just in the, I just add in the past, which is not a current focus of people's attention, but since Michael Sullivan was a proponent of this whole thing, in the past, the committee's been aware of his sentiments but time has passed, so I'll bring it up again.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other business that we need to talk about before I entertain a motion to adjourn? Mike?
If Michael
we're
Sullivan wants to
gonna-
be a facilitator, have you already asked him? It's not a bad idea, no? Sorry.
Have not, and I don't know if, well, no, I have not.
That's
I'll
my
leave it
name.
at
I'm throwing it out at you, Michael Sullivan.
Okay, thank you. Mike, did you have something you had?
Did you want to approve minutes?
Yes, if you have some at finance, yes.
Yes, we do. Lynn has provided minutes for our June 22nd meeting. And they were passed around to everybody. Hope everybody had a chance to review them. These are some minutes, so
I move to approve the minutes of the finance subcommittee meeting, FTF subcommittee meeting.
There
do I
a
hear a
second?
second? I'm not hearing a second.
Len raised her hand.
Oh,
Was that the minutes that, at the end you adjourned, but there was no time listed on what time you actually adjourned?
No, I did put a time for adjournment because I
Okay,
could figure out the length of the meeting and added that to the time that we started. So I estimated it. We didn't say when we adjourned.
okay. All right, there must have been some other minutes that I was looking at. All right, so you want to call for a vote there, Mike?
yeah, there's, any further discussion? Okay, I guess we have to do a roll call vote.
Yes.
Jane Dutcher,
Yes,
David Young,
Yes.
Lynn Reynolds.
Yes,
I don't see Michelle. Mike Naughton, yes. So
Okay. Any other
thank you
minutes,
very
Mike?
much.
That's it?
That's it.
And how about you, Deb? Do you have any minutes that you need to have approved? Okay. All right, well, thank you, everyone, so much. And I'm looking forward to someday seeing everybody in person. So enjoy the rest of your evening. And I wish you all well. Take care. A motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second? And Lynn seconded. And I think that was Jane that made the motion. Greg?
Okay, Jane,
Yes?
Yes.
Alan, yes. Jane, yes. Karen?
Yes.
Bill?
Yep.
Lynn?
yes.
Raina?
Yes.
Deb? Mike?
Yes.
We're done. All right. See you later, everybody. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye.
Mhm.
Good night.